For centuries, nations fought wars over oil. Now, the new battleground may be water. Rivers are drying up, reservoirs are collapsing, crops are failing. Entire regions are overheating, and behind closed doors, governments are quietly preparing for water shortages that could destabilize entire countries. From the Nile to the Mekong to the Colorado River, water scarcity is becoming geopolitical. Tonight, 5 retired spies give their brutally honest opinions on the coming water crisis. Is this manageable, or the beginning of future water wars? Let's begin. Back with us tonight, Texas Buck McCoy, Colonel Dimitri, The Bear Volkov, Madam Lee Wei, Sir Reginald Hawthorne, Lucas, The Vault Bruna. 5 retired spies, 5 very different perspectives. First round, what exactly is happening right now?
What's happening is simple. Water scarcity is becoming a major national security problem. The American Southwest is suffering through historic megadrought conditions. Reservoirs are shrinking. Farmers are losing land. Cities are fighting over water rights. And globally, countries are increasingly realizing that whoever controls water controls agriculture, energy, migration, and political leverage. China's upstream dams across Asia are changing river flows for downstream countries. The Nile dispute between Egypt and Ethiopia is becoming more dangerous. This isn't just environmental anymore. This is geopolitical.
Oh, how wonderfully civilized. Humanity spent centuries mastering industry, only to discover we forgot to secure drinking water. Britain now experiences drought warnings like some Mediterranean country pretending to be Northern Europe. Europe is drying out every summer. Rivers are shrinking. Reservoirs resemble decorative puddles. And yet governments continue behaving as though strongly worded climate conferences shall somehow refill the Thames. The Nile situation is dangerous. The Mekong situation is dangerous. Even America and Mexico are arguing over rivers now. We're entering an age where water becomes strategic leverage. And frankly, that should terrify everyone.
Water security is becoming one of the defining global challenges of this century. Climate change, population growth, industrial development, and agricultural demand are placing enormous stress on water systems worldwide. China recognizes these realities very seriously. We have invested heavily in water infrastructure, flood management, desalination technology, and long-term planning. Shared rivers require dialogue and mutual coordination between upstream and downstream nations. However, many governments still underestimate how destabilizing water scarcity may become in the coming decades.
The world ignored long-term resource realities for too long. Europe focused on political theater while infrastructure weakened. America wasted enormous amounts of water while assuming abundance would last forever.
Mikhail, strategic powers quietly prepared. Water scarcity changes everything: agriculture, migration, energy, stability.
Countries will increasingly use dams, reservoirs, and river access as geopolitical tools. Nature does not negotiate. This crisis is exposing which governments prepared seriously and which governments preferred denial.
From a neutral perspective, tensions surrounding water resources are clearly increasing globally. Major river systems across Europe, Asia, Africa, and North America are under mounting pressure. Climate variability combined with rising demand creates long-term instability risks. Shared water systems are particularly vulnerable because international legal frameworks remain relatively weak. Water scarcity is no longer theoretical. It is already affecting economic stability, migration patterns, energy production, and agriculture in multiple regions simultaneously.
Clear opening statements already. Now let's get uncomfortable. Who bears responsibility? Who created this situation? Climate change, governments, industrial powers, or simple human stupidity?
Oh, splendid. Humanity has apparently spent decades treating water like an unlimited buffet. China builds giant upstream dams. America drains aquifers like there's no tomorrow. Europe lectures the world while its own infrastructure slowly collapses from heat and drought. Britain, meanwhile, continues pretending hosepipe bans are merely charming seasonal traditions. Frankly, everyone contributed to this mess. We industrialized aggressively, ignored long-term planning, and assumed nature would politely cooperate forever. It did not.
Assigning blame alone will not solve the crisis. All major economies contributed to environmental stress through industrial growth and resource consumption. China believes cooperative management remains essential for shared river systems. Upstream nations naturally possess strategic advantages, but sustainable long-term stability requires coordination with downstream partners. Water diplomacy will become increasingly important as pressures intensify.
Leeway. With respect, countries downstream don't exactly feel reassured watching China control major river headwaters. Dams create leverage. That's reality. America has made mistakes too, absolutely. We wasted water for decades assuming scarcity couldn't happen here. But strategic control over rivers? That changes regional power dynamics enormously. Water is becoming geopolitical leverage whether people admit it or not.
The West End enjoys blaming everyone except itself. Europe neglected infrastructure. America overconsumed resources massively. Climate policies focused more on public image than long-term resilience. Now reality arrives. Reservoirs dry up. Agriculture weakens. Internal dispute intensify. Russia may benefit in some northern agricultural regions, but globally this instability threatens everyone eventually. Water scarcity is becoming another arena for geopolitical competition.
This appears to be a collective long-term governance failure. Population growth, industrial expansion, weak infrastructure planning, and climate instability all contributed simultaneously. The lack of stronger international water agreements remains particularly concerning. Shared river systems increasingly require binding coordination mechanisms. Without them, geopolitical tensions may intensify substantially.
Dmitry talks about Western failures, but Russia weaponizes energy whenever convenient.
And America believes controlling resources globally is somehow moral win. Washington does it.
Escalation rhetoric will only worsen instability. Shared resource management requires practical cooperation.
Meanwhile, ordinary civilians simply want enough water to survive summer without infrastructure collapsing around them. How terribly unreasonable of them.
Emotional confrontation does not improve reservoir levels.
Lucas, my dear Swiss friend, one suspects you could calmly narrate the apocalypse while balancing investment portfolios.
And somehow Switzerland remains emotionally stable while the rest of the world dries out. Let's move to predictions. What happens next?
Water stress will continue intensifying across many regions. Countries will increasingly invest in desalination, recycling systems, large-scale reservoirs, and agricultural efficiency. China will continue expanding water management technology and infrastructure cooperation internationally. However, tensions over shared rivers will likely grow more serious as demand rises and climate conditions worsen. Diplomatic coordination will become increasingly critical.
I predict regional conflicts surrounding water will steadily increase. Downstream countries will become increasingly frustrated with upstream control. Food insecurity will grow in vulnerable regions. Migration pressure will intensify. Governments will use water access strategically during dispute. Proxy conflicts over dams and river systems become increasingly possible. Water scarcity is capable of destabilizing entire regions.
America will face major internal fights over water allocation in the coming decade. The Colorado River situation is already serious. Agriculture, cities, and industry are competing for shrinking supplies. Globally, Countries will increasingly treat water infrastructure like strategic assets. Whoever controls reservoirs and river systems gains enormous leverage. If governments don't modernize infrastructure aggressively, this problem becomes dangerous very fast.
I predict Europe will continue stumbling from one drought emergency to another. Southern Europe especially faces severe long-term pressure. Britain will continue acting surprised every summer, despite increasingly obvious trends. Hose pipe bans shall become annual traditions, rivers shrink, food prices rise, political tensions grow, and governments continue hosting conferences while citizens quietly roast under historically inappropriate temperatures. Frankly, it all feels remarkably avoidable in hindsight.
I expect increasing strain across international river agreements and regional water sharing systems. Economic impacts will likely expand significantly through agriculture, transportation, energy generation, and insurance markets. Migration pressure from severely water-stressed regions may also intensify. Long-term adaptation planning is becoming essential rather than optional.
Buck, America spent decades building suburbs in deserts, and now appears shocked that deserts lack water.
And Europe shut reliable energy systems while pretending climate speeches alone solve infrastructure problems.
Both of you prove my point rather perfectly. Ideology replaced realism.
Resource competition without cooperation will destabilize everyone eventually.
Quite right. Humanity appears determined to argue politically, while reservoirs quietly evaporate.
And now we arrive at the darkest question of all. Worst-case scenario. What's the true nightmare scenario here?
The nightmare scenario is proxy wars over water systems across multiple regions simultaneously. Armed groups targeting dams, countries threatening river access, massive refugee waves overwhelming borders, food shortages triggering political instability globally. Desperate governments make dangerous decisions. Civilizations are only a few shortages away from panic. Water scarcity could become more destabilizing than oil ever was.
For Europe, a continent trapped between drought and chaos. Summers becoming physically unbearable. Agriculture collapsing in vulnerable regions. Water rationing becoming politically explosive. Millions struggling through recurring shortages while governments continue releasing reassuring statements nobody believes anymore. Britain shall probably continue maintaining a stiff upper lip while quietly dying of dehydration. Very dignified apocalypse, really.
The greatest danger would be simultaneous systemic strain across food supply, migration systems, energy production, healthcare capacity, and financial stability. Once multiple systems begin destabilizing together, recovery becomes extremely difficult. Large-scale humanitarian crises could emerge rapidly under severe water-stress conditions.
Worst case? Real interstate conflicts over water inside countries. Infrastructure collapse during severe heat waves. Food supply disruptions. Mass migration from drought-hit regions. Global instability skyrockets. People underestimate how quickly civilized societies become unstable when basic resources disappear. Water shortages create desperation. Desperation creates conflict.
The worst outcome would involve simultaneous humanitarian and geopolitical crises. Drought, migration, food shortages, and economic disruption reinforcing each other across multiple continents. International cooperation breaking down precisely when it becomes most necessary. That scenario would threaten global stability for many years.
Leeway. Upstream control gives countries enormous leverage, whether governments admit it or not.
Leverage without stability ultimately harms everyone, Buck.
History shows resource-scarce cities rarely produce calm diplomacy, usually the opposite.
Marvelous. Humanity spent centuries mastering technology only to rediscover that people become extremely aggressive when thirsty.
Practical coordination remains more effective than panic. And there it is, water, the resource every nation needs and increasingly fears losing. Climate pressure, population growth, strategic competition. None of these trends are slowing down. The question is no longer whether water will shape geopolitics. The question is how wisely governments manage it before scarcity becomes conflict. Final round. One personal verdict from each of you.
Quite frankly, Europe is entering an age of recurring climate discomfort for which it remains embarrassingly unprepared. Britain especially continues treating water stress like an unfortunate inconvenience rather than a strategic threat. We require infrastructure modernization, serious planning and fewer theatrical speeches. Otherwise, we shall continue evaporating politely every summer.
Water security and infrastructure resilience are becoming core national security priorities. Weak preparation will cost lives. Governments must stop treating this like a distant environmental issue and start treating it like strategic survival.
Water scarcity is a shared global challenge requiring long-term planning, investment, and international coordination. Competition without cooperation will increase instability for all nations. Sustainable management and practical diplomacy remain essential.
Nature punishes weakness and denial equally. Governments ignored long-term realities for too long. Water scarcity is exposing which societies prepared seriously, and which societies believed comfort would last forever.
Practical adaptation, stable infrastructure, and stronger international coordination offer the best path forward. Emotional reactions may generate headlines, but come long-term planning that undermines resilience.
Another intense discussion from the Retired Spies Club. 5 retired spies. 5 very different perspectives on one of the defining resource crises of the 21st century. Which verdict resonated with you the most tonight? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy these deep geopolitical conversations without political spin, subscribe and join the club. This is Cheesy Bond signing off. Stay sharp and maybe conserve some water while you're at it. We'll see you next time.